Okay, we'll get started. I just wanted to welcome everybody. My name is Titus White. I am the Rural Director of Events for All Together Now. It's a new title, so I'm not really used to saying it. But I am hosting this event from the Hempstead at Mountaindale Farm, which is in Delaware Water Gap, Pennsylvania. We're right on the border of New Jersey and New York, up in the northeast corner of Pennsylvania. I have a 45-acre that I grow hemp on. Also work very closely with Judy in all of the sustainable focused work that she does. It's been, how long has it been? 2 years now, I think, that we've all been working together, which is pretty wild. It's really, really exciting, and grateful and honored to represent this wonderful organization. Today's event is going to be focused on the health benefits of plant medicine, something that I am really, really interested in because it actually is the reason that I got into farming. Farming hemp was a gateway crop for me. I looked for a farm to buy after I spent some time at my father's in New Mexico. I explained to my father that I had plantar fasciitis, which is just like, feels like you're walking on glass when you wake up in the morning, or as soon as you get off your feet, if you step out of the truck, it's like crippling pain. So I told my dad that I hadn't not felt pain in my feet for over a year. He owns a cannabis dispensary out there. He gave me some CBD balm, said, put this on one foot, put a sock on, go to bed. We'll talk in the morning. Take 2 of these and call me tomorrow type of thing. And woke up and ran down the stairs to have coffee. And he just was smiling. He said, I told you, it works. And I didn't even realize that it was the first time that I had, gotten out of bed without pain. So my feelings for CBD at that moment changed. I was not somebody that was deeply involved in either CBD or THC or cannabis as a whole. But I've always had an interest in plant medicine, but CBD was the gateway for all of this. I immediately started looking for a farm to grow hemp because I thought it's a miracle drug. This stuff really works. It can help, and it's organic and easy to use and readily available. So looked for a farm, found one, started growing hemp, loved, kind of getting my hands in the dirt, and loved the people that I was meeting via Judy and All Together Now. And now have switched over, well, not switched, but diversified. And I am a produce farmer. We have a dairy goat program. And I just purchased a general store and a restaurant for farm to table work here in the Poconos. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Judy Wicks, and she's going to talk a little bit about the rest of the program here today, and then we'll get right into it. Judy?
Well, thanks, Eric. Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to see so many friends and colleagues online today. We were astonished that we had 90 RCPs. Not everybody's on. I don't know if they'll all show up, but thank you all for being here. I also wanted to thank Sharon Perry, and I don't think she's on yet. She's our last speaker. She's co-host with Eric and myself, and helped start the Plant Medicine Coalition almost 2 years ago. Sharon is also our cannabis equity advocate. And so we will be having a program in the future about getting an equitable bill in Pennsylvania, as we saw, like New York just passed today. But today, we're not talking about that. We're talking about the health benefits of plant medicine. And so before we start with our first speaker, I wanted to tell you a little bit about All Together Now. It's a nonprofit that we started about 2 years ago. Eric said, just tell everybody why you're doing this work, so why I'm doing it. The first reason that comes to mind is to have local self-reliance. And I learned about self-reliance from visiting the Zapatistas, the indigenous people of Chiapas, who had their uprising on the day that NAFTA went into effect on January 1st, 1994. And the Zapatistas had their uprising because they were demanding that they keep their local self-reliance, that they not be dragged into the global economy, that they be allowed to raise their vegetables and sell them in the domestic marketplace and not end up in maquiladoras manufacturing clothing along the borders. I had never really thought about that before, but when I did, I realized that around the world, our communities had lost their self-reliance, that we depend on large multinational corporations to deliver our food and our clothing and our energy and our building materials, and that this puts us in a vulnerable position. Wendell Berry once said that without prosperous local economies, the people have no power and the land no voice. And I think that's so true, that when we produce our basic needs locally, we move power and wealth from outside corporations back to our communities. And this also connects us to the land through our farmers who practice regenerative agriculture as stewards, of our land. So I feel that climate change adds urgency to this work to relocalize and build local self-reliance, because as weather becomes more chaotic, these long distance supply chains that we depend on are going to be disrupted, and also disrupted by pandemics, by social upheaval, and so on. I feel that an urgency about this, that what we do today to build local self-reliance and resilience will mean the survival or not of future generations. So our work all together now is to unite rural and urban communities to build local supply chains that produce our basic needs. And I feel like this also is a healing of the rural and urban divide, that we work together for the good of all of us. The second reason why it's important to me to do this work is around economic justice, that while we're building a new economy, a locally based economy, we have the opportunity to make sure that those who have been left out and the corporate controlled economy have an opportunity for ownership and green jobs in this one. In particular, our farmers in the rural areas and communities of color in the cities. We started this work with hemp because hemp was banned for 80 years. And when that ban was lifted, it was a golden opportunity to work on from the ground roots of this new industry to make sure that our farmers and our communities got the opportunities and not have these outside corporations come into Pennsylvania like a green gold rush to scoop up all the goodies. In our work all together now, we intend to help start cooperatives, both farmer cooperatives and worker cooperatives along these supply chains, and to partner in an incubator for brown-black entrepreneurs to help design the products needed for local self-reliance. So the third reason that I love this work and I'm committed to it is I want to be part of a revolution of values, as Dr. King called for back in the 60s, that we move this society from one that's based on materialism and consumerism and greed to one where we care for each other. So at All Together now, we're working to build a caring economy where we have caring relationships amongst each other and with nature. I had the opportunity as a young person back in the 60s to live in an indigenous community, Eskimo village in Alaska, where I witnessed firsthand a culture that was based on sharing and cooperation, as opposed to our culture that's so much about competition and hoarding our wealth and our knowledge. And the other thing I noticed is that the Eskimos were the happiest people I ever met. And I realized that their happiness did not come from money. It came from community. And so, that's where the joy is. So that's the other reason I did this work, because it's fun. And that, there's collective joy and working together toward a shared vision. And I just cannot wait so we can start having parties when COVID is over, because we'll be able to go to Wild Fox Farm. We'll be able to go to Barefoot Botanicals and have their herbal cocktails and the mocktails for those who prefer. I'm excited about this. It's going to be a fun adventure together. And I thank you all for being here. I hope you enjoy the program.
Thanks, Judy. We're just going to hop in. I think maybe we'll give Linda some time, and we'll introduce Ben and Kara Davies. Ben and Kara Davies are broadcasting from their greenhouse in Bartow, Pennsylvania. They own Wild Fox Provisions and Wild Fox Farms. They also just showed everybody these really awesome looking herbal teas that they're canning now. So I'm excited about that. Ben and Kara are members of All Together now and have hosted us at their farm before. Really wonderful example of a farm, a hemp farm in Pennsylvania. We are going to be focusing or letting Ben and Kara talk about CBD. I did want to kind of emphasize that our program and this event that we're hosting right now, it is a plant medicine event, and plant medicine as an industry as a whole is the large part of our sustainable path forward. The reason that we're kind of spotlighting CBD and THC is just because I believe, and Judy, we understand that there are a lot of questions out there. Linda is going to go into the real ins and outs and a deep dive into herbal medicine, plant medicine. And in the future, each one of our hosts are going to have their own hour to hour and a half long event where they can talk about their specific industry, CBD, THC, or plant medicine as a whole. But this is just kind of an intro. And with that, I will hand it over to Ben and Kara, and they're going to talk about their CBD operation.
Thanks. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us here. And thanks to Judy and Eric for having us on. Like Eric said, we're Wild Fox Farm and Wild Fox Provisions. Wild Fox Farm is our food side of things. We do produce and meats. We are certified organic in our produce operation. And we just got certified organic in our hemp operation, which is the Wild Fox Provisions name. We've been farming for about 10 years now, Ben and I together. And we got into hemp about 3 years ago. I guess it was 2018 was our first hemp season. It's grown pretty steadily since then each year. This past year, we grew 5 acres of hemp, and we've always focused on the high CBD side of it. We don't do the seed or fiber. We just focus on high CBD. And yeah, we grow it all organically using any organic pesticides and fertilizers we can find and whatnot. Try to bring a lot of different products to our community. We'll talk a little bit more about our products in a little bit, but yeah, I guess that's kind of the background of our farm here.
Yeah. So Kara didn't mention that did you say we've been farming for 10 years, I think now? We are not first generation farmers, or we are first generation farmers. We don't have like a farming background. And so as many people do these days, we had a romantic dream of farming and raising a family, farming and things like that. And so we started that 10 years ago. And being that we are not really cannabis users at all, I mean, obviously we all encounter the cannabis plant throughout our lives. Kara and I have never been avid cannabis users or really regular cannabis users at all in any way, shape, or form. We've never grown the cannabis plant before we started growing hemp. So we never really imagined that we would start growing the cannabis plant or find it to become such a huge part of our lives. But when we did start looking into growing hemp in 2017, and then we started in 2018, we've always looked at it from less of a medicine perspective and more of a food perspective, actually, just because we are passionate about food. And we didn't, we don't have any kind of medical degrees, or we've never, studied medicine. Kara does have a nutrition degree. So that's kind of the perspective we came at it from. But then slowly we started to see, okay, well, the real money at that time is in this thing called CBD. And, obviously we all know there's so much more to the cannabis plant than just CBD. But that's kind of where the industry was focusing, and where a lot of, farms out west that were more progressive than we were here on the East Coast were, making a lot of money. And so that's kind of where all the hype came from. And then I think, as we started to get into growing hemp, we started to learn more and more about the medicinal side of the cannabis plant. Obviously we were very aware of the recreational side of cannabis plant, but really never had any idea that the cannabis plant, whether it be hemp or marijuana, can have such an amazing benefit in people's lives. And so as we've come to know the plant more, and come to know the industry more, and come to know the science more, we've started to formulate products with our harvest. One of the things that we, saw from the beginning was the opportunity to do, a cool brand with the products. And that's kind of one of the things that we had seen as an opportunity, that we could kind of move a little bit away from the agricultural rhythm as a business, and be able to develop some shelf-stable products, essentially. And so we delved deeply into that, and now we have, maybe like 30 different products that we sell. There's the product categories that we've developed are dried teas. So this is an example of our tea that we sell. We also have topicals. So this is like a lotion. We have lip balms and salves. What as, many folks know as a CBD oil, which is your tincture products. And we also have, as Eric mentioned, our tea now, which we're basically taking what, you see in the can, in the tin, and then formulating that into and canning it as a, a cold beverage that you can enjoy. This is kind of like where it all comes from, which some of you may recognize as a bud. But that's essentially, this is our goal when we're growing. We're trying to harvest flower from the female plant. We don't want any male plants at all, because we want that to produce as much cannabinoids and terpenes and all of those different chemicals in the flower buds. And then we harvest it, dry it, and we process it in a couple different ways, depending on the product. And so that basically brings us to the point where we are, selling products. And that's the part where it starts to get pretty real for us. We're just kind of thinking, how can we sell an agricultural product? And then that's the point where we started to see people coming back to us and saying, hey, this is changing my life. This is, for instance, our tinctures. This is just one of the 5 different tinctures that we sell. We also have a couple other varieties. We don't have any flavored ones, but we try to let the plant speak for itself whenever we have the opportunity to. And so we don't add any flavorings to things. But those products really kind of started we were starting to get feedback from folks and finding out that, this is helping someone with sleep, or, a school teacher who, in the morning she takes, a dropper of the tincture, and then she'll drink a cup of tea in the morning of our hemp tea. And then she feels much more effective and much more present for her classroom at school, because it takes the edge off for her, and she can just, be more present for the kids and for the students. And, What's that?
Folks that have had neuropathy and have not had any relief. It sounds kind of like what you were talking about, Eric, where there's just constant pain and asking a doctor to take your foot off because you can't get relief. They'll take a couple of our tinctures, a couple doses of our tincture and have relief. And that's life-changing for them for sure.
Yeah, and I think, you know, even beyond that, folks who, like in that instance, who basically could only function using opioids for the last, you know, however many decades of their life, and now all of a sudden for the first time they don't have to take those addictive, you know, harmful medications anymore, and they can use a more natural plant-based product. And so the point being that, like, that all adds up to us, you know, realizing, wow, what have we gotten ourselves into here? You know, we better do a good job, and we better keep this thing afloat, because there's a lot of people depending on us now for quality of life. And it's just, you know, I think that we obviously, we're trying to make money, we're trying to run a business, but we also feel so encouraged by that we can, you know, work as hard as we possibly can and give this everything that we have financially, and basically just trying to make sure that we're here for those people, and that, you know, the products that they are relying on for that quality of life, you know, we're making those available, making those safe and reliable. So I think we're close to the 10-minute time frame, and there's a couple questions coming in the comments. So be happy to, you know, answer questions as well.
Yes, we are available at Weaver's Way Co-op. It looks like you found that there.
Yeah.
There's a couple of our products at the different Weaver's Ways. They each get different orders, but yeah, on our website you can find a link for where to find us and which retailers carry our products and stuff.
There's a question. Can you explain the difference between marijuana and hemp plants and medicinals? So basically, the cannabis, the way I like to describe the cannabis plant is, think about tomatoes. You know, we all know cherry tomatoes, which are bred to be, you know, sweet little, you know, gumdrops of like summer. And then you have your large slicing tomatoes that are less sweet, but are very like umami, meaty, and that you can slice and put on a sandwich. Well, those are the exact same plant, and we all know that. And they were bred for different uses, for different purposes. So in the same way, the cannabis plant over thousands of years has been bred for different end uses. So you have the primary ones are fiber production, seed oil production, and then cannabinoid production. And within the cannabinoid category, you can THC is the psychoactive compound in cannabis that is intoxicating. And so basically that's where a lot of the legislation focuses. So the 2014 Farm Bill, and then the 2018 Farm Bill, and now the final rule from the USDA have solidified our definition and our relationship with the cannabis plant for now as marijuana and hemp as being two different categories. So hemp would be the seed, fiber, and cannabinoid production of anything other than delta-9 THC. And the marijuana category would be defined as delta-9 THC. So that's why you see separate programs. You see like adult use cannabis, you see medical marijuana or medical use cannabis, and you see hemp. So we focus on varieties that can produce other cannabinoids like CBG or CBD, and they can produce those in higher quantities and produce THC in very low quantities. And that's how we can produce something that has cannabinoids and that have medicinal value in a high enough concentration that it's worthwhile harvesting and making products out of those without it fitting the definition of marijuana. Any other questions?
Okay. I had one, Ben. I know that like behind you, you have plants there I'm sure that everybody recognizes those plants as cannabis plants or marijuana plants. You will be driving down the road in Pennsylvania and you'll see plants that look like that and think, my goodness, that's a field full of marijuana. How is that legal? And the answer is that, you know, for instance, at your farm, you've planted those seeds and the seeds are producing a plant that looks, smells, tastes, acts, everything like marijuana, except it doesn't have the THC, which would get you high, for instance. Is that
Yep.
that's the idea?
Basically, yeah. Mhm.
Oh, okay. And then when you are growing these plants, I guess the question is, what do you feel like the best way to bring the medicine from the plant to the people is? You know, we're not everybody is going to go out and smoke a bud to get CBD. So what are, in your experience, what's the best way to bring the medicine to the people?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And that's a question that we obviously, you know, wrestle with all the time. Like, you know, in the plant medicine community, a tincture is a common thing, but for most people, this is a weird product. Like, this is not something that most people have in their daily lives when it comes to like humanity in general. You know, a tincture is not a normal product. But that has become kind of the poster child of the CBD industry and other parts of the cannabis industry. And for good reason, because it is it's a very efficient product for us to make. It's very simple. You know, this is just our full spectrum extract and MCT oil just to dilute it to a reasonable, you know, potency. So it's very simple. It's a very effective product. You know, when it comes to the teas or, you know, the drinkable beverages, for us, you know, it's kind of less about looking at these products as a medicinal product per se, and more about looking at it, like I mentioned before, as like a culinary product. We come at it from, you know, a food standpoint. You know, if you could smell this hemp bud, you know, it would just smell like marijuana. So if you're familiar with smelling marijuana or hemp, there's a lot of really appetizing aromas and flavors there that we also feel like can lend themselves to some great value. So that's, you know, what, for instance, why we have just this product, which is our tea, which is just literally hemp that's been brewed like a tea, and we just add a little honey and lemon to it. And we're just, like I said, trying to let the plant speak for itself when it comes to that. So there's definitely like a balance. And you know, every different like hemp company or hemp farm or CBD company has a different approach. Like some are very, very medicinal type companies. Like you have CV Sciences, which is a nationally distributed, really reputable company. They're a very medicinal, pharmaceutical focused company. Like I don't think that you would see them come out with just like a casual drinking hemp tea kind of a product. And then you have companies that just make CBD chocolate and CBD gummies. And that's really not, I mean, they're gummies, they're adult gummies, you know, like it's definitely not like an explicitly medicinal product. But as, like I said, as we've learned about it, we're thinking, you know, really any way that we can get this medicine, you know, so to call it, into people's bodies and to help, you know, allow for people to have approachable products, whereas this is $80. Mm-hmm. This is $4. Right. So like, you know, there's, as part of that goes into like the process of how we decide what we want to do, and just like kind of the grander mission of like, how do we introduce the cannabis plant to people who otherwise would not be interested in interacting with it because of, you know, a lot of stigma and things that are out there.
And I think the other thing is that's why we have so many products, because we want to have something for everyone. We've got the topicals for folks that don't want to ingest it. Here, I'll hold it up. So we've got lotion and salve and lip balm that if you don't want to ingest it, you can just use it on your body and still get the relief. But then the other options are more for, how do you want to ingest this? Are you okay with smoking it? Because that's a very efficient way of getting it into your body, but a lot of people don't want to. So then there's a tincture, which is also efficient and the teas
Great.
if you want the flavor and all that good stuff. So
All right.
choose.
Well, thank you very, very much. I don't know if the video switched back, but maybe it has. Now I made it switch back. All right. Ben and Kara, thank you very much. We are going to hand it over to Linda Shanahan. Linda was supposed to be our first speaker to just kind of introduce plant medicine as an industry. Linda Shanahan is a member of All Together Now PA. She has had some events at her business, Barefoot Botanicals, which is in Doylestown. Linda is also a nurse, which is pretty interesting. So she's coming at the plant medicine from a whole bunch of different directions. She's a farmer as well, and a certified organic, she has a certified organic herb farm in Doylestown along with her store. I will send this over to Linda if I can find her. I think I did. And Linda, you're all set to go?
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
All righty.
I am not able to. Are you able to make me a co-host?
I can do that.
Okay.
There you go.
All right, let me try now. All right, it's gonna come up on the wrong picture here. Let me go ahead and do a slideshow. And hi everyone, my name is Linda Shanahan. As Eric had said, can everyone see my screen, my PowerPoint? Okay. So the reason that I wasn't first, I was supposed to be the first speaker. I was at a funeral today, and it was a funeral for someone in my family who died too young. And it just serves as a really good example of where I think plants serve potential in our society, in the world, that is being underutilized. So he died of esophageal cancer. And that is a very common condition that results from years of things like regurgitation, from gastroesophageal reflux, for example. Someone who was not a drinker, someone who was not a smoker, has really no other reason for developing esophageal cancer other than some other chronic inflammatory response by the body. And someone who maybe doesn't have the best diet, maybe suffers from a little bit of GERD, somebody who has more stress in their life, maybe suffers from a little bit of GERD, somebody who goes to bed right after eating might suffer from a little bit of GERD. But there's some very simple ways in which we can address things like GERD, these chronic inflammatory conditions that so many of us experience, that can be managed well if we just access the plants around us. And this is just a really good example of something that our current medical system demonstrates failure. And that's where I am just so passionate about this, because I studied herbalism, but then I became a nurse so that I could learn more about our Western medical model. And while there's definitely fascinating, amazing things that we can do within it, there's glaring problems within it. And those problems culminate in things like premature death in people that otherwise would have lived healthier, more comfortable lives. And the inequalities that we see in society that are reflected in our healthcare system that have been exacerbated in the last year with COVID. It's become more apparent to everyone, a lot of the problems that we have with our system and how it does not treat everyone the same. So I come from that happening today, thinking about this talk this afternoon, and just thinking about how we can just really think about embracing plant medicine in ways to not just heal our bodies, but enhance our spiritual connection, enhance our connection with our environment, the seasons around us. Plants to me are just a way to help build a better relationship with our earth. And that's kind of where I'm coming from. And that's really where we came from when we started our farm. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why we grow herbs and how we use them. A little bit about some basic categories. I know Ben and Kara talked a little bit about that earlier, but I'm going to expand a little bit as well. And then talk about some resources for herbal medicine. And what I'm focused on is not just cannabis plants. I'm also talking about all of the plants, all the different plant medicines that people have used throughout time. And people have used plants throughout time and still use plants as their primary form of healthcare today. The World Health Organization estimates that over 75 to 80% of the world population still uses herbs or plant medicine as their primary medical care. So it's a big thing, and we need to reconnect with our roots, I believe. So the mission of our farm is that we connect people with plants for food, for medicine, and for a more resilient future, more resilient collective future. And that has been our mission statement for many years. We've been farming for, this will be our 14th season. That doesn't sound right, but I guess that is our 14th season. But we transitioned from growing vegetables. We started out with a CSA model, and then we transitioned to growing medicinal herbs because of my personal interest and also my eventual conversion of my husband into my interests, which worked out well for me. But there's a picture of him. His name's Eric. And this is just an image for you of how a small herb farm operates. So we do everything by hand. We grow organically, as Eric mentioned, and we are very small scale. And we grow a lot of different plants. So we have, I think, on my seeding schedule, which I'm still kind of working on right now, I think we have 120 different crops. So we have small amounts of each crop. Some crops we do as much as 1/8 of an acre, but that's the most we do of any one crop. And this is a calendula. This is one of the most labor-intensive plants, in my opinion. And I actually would like to grow less and less of this because it's backbreaking. As you can see, you're bent over for hours when you're harvesting it, and you're collecting each flower by hand. And you are going back 2 days later because they come back that quickly to these plants. You can see behind us, there's complete, the plants have been denuded of the flowers. Well, they'll have flowers again in 2 to 3 days. So you have to go back, and that's about 6 weeks long from one crop. So it's a lot of harvesting, and they dry down to about 1/7 of what their fresh weight is. So when you're harvesting plants, you're anticipating that you're going to be trying to preserve them in some way. We preserve them in the form of tincture, as was mentioned earlier, which is an alcohol extract, or you can preserve them by drying them, or making syrups or other things that you can do to help keep the harvest for that following year. When you're drying plants, you're losing all of the water weight. And so when we are thinking about the cost of, for example, dried teas that you may find from local farmers, think about the fact that the fresh weight of something may be as much as 10 times what the dry weight is of that end crop. I have this plant first. So this is hops, and this is a plant that a lot of people are familiar with because they drink beer. So I think of everyone as herbalists, even if they don't know it, because everyone engages in plant medicine in some way, either as part of their food. They're surrounded by plants with houses that we live in, with the clothing that we wear. We use plants every day in our lives. And this is one that many people are familiar with and may not be familiar with some of the properties of this plant. So this plant is hops. And hops are grown a little bit different than some of the other herbs. We grow them upright, and you harvest what's called the strobiles, which have this chemical on them called lupulin, which is that yellow powder that you can see on the left, kind of embedded inside the leafy material that you can see here. And that lupulin is lupulin is very, very bitter. It is very sedative and has the quality of that bitter flavor, which is used as a bittering agent in beverages. And so the bitter flavor has kind of popularized, in my opinion, revitalized a lot of interest in plant medicine, because people are experiencing plant medicine through their cup, whether it's their coffee cup or their teacup or their beer mug. And it is a gateway for people to learn more about plants and the way that it affects them. So bitter plants tend to be cooling. So many bitter plants, hemp or cannabis is a bitter plant. Many bitter plants are somewhat cooling to the body. They bring energy into the core of the bodies, enhancing digestion, stirring the release of gastric secretions, all of that, and enhancing movement of things like bile to help you better digest fats, for example. It helps with secretion of things like pancreatic enzymes so that you may secrete create more catalytic responses to help digest molecules more effectively into the bloodstream. You actually will secrete more insulin when you take in bitter crops, or bitter plants, which is one of the reasons why Some people that have diabetes are depending on some herbs like bitter melon. That's a traditional plant that's used in much of the tropical world to help enhance the secretion of insulin. So I think of plants energetically. I think of them by taste, and very much like was mentioned earlier, culinary uses of plants is a great way to really enhance your health, to just add herbs to your foods, and you can have a very beneficial effect that way. This is chamomile. This is a crop that we're going to be harvesting. It's one of the first crops we harvest in the year. And so this is another mildly bitter plant, but it also has some other qualities. And this is an herb that I would use for someone who is complaining of reflux, for example. So chamomile gently calms stress. It's a nervine. It's a term that we use in herbalism, that kind of a nervous system sedative. It helps with secretion of digestive enzymes, as I mentioned, so that if you eat food, it will help keep it moving downward in the direction you want it to, instead of it going the wrong way. It also has a slight mucilaginous quality to it that coats the mucous membranes of the digestive tract, that helps heal damaged tissue. It has an anti-inflammatory effect. It has all these things in this one plant. And the thing that I like to think of with plant medicine is it's never as cut and dry, or it's never as straight and narrow as the way we think of as the Western medical model, the modern medical model. Plant medicine is so much more broad. It has a synergy with us. Our bodies evolved with plants. And so we have this evolutionary synergy with plant medicine that, yes, is maybe sometimes messy. It's maybe hard to figure out how much to give or how much to take, or you maybe the effect is not exactly the same in every person. Well, that's the thing. That's the great thing about herbal medicine, is it has to be individualized by nature, because everyone reacts differently to some of these things. There's definitely some things that are going to have specific effects, but in many cases, people have more of a synergistic effect with certain plants over others. So you have to kind of feel that out. So it's helpful to experiment and know that they're not the same as pharmaceuticals. They don't have the same kinds of side effects that you find taking pills with isolated chemicals. So herbal medicine the definition of herbal medicine is traditional folk medicine practices based on the use of plants. And so that could be seeds, berries, roots, barks, leaves, flowers, as I just showed you. And you can be using the actual parts of the plants or extracts of those plants. And all of that is still considered herbal medicine. Extracts can be, as was mentioned, tinctures, which is an alcohol extract. It could be vinegar extract. So basically that means just taking the plant material, soaking it in what we call a menstruum, which is either alcohol or vinegar or glycerin or water. You can make an infusion, you can make a decoction, which is tea. Either you have tea that you don't cook or tea that you do cook. You either just soak and remove the plant material, or you soak and you cook the plant material. So there's just all different ways that we use these plants. We can make them sweeter by adding honey or sugar to make it more like a syrup. And we do a lot of syrups with products from our farm. And that's what we like to help introduce people to plant medicine through syrups, because people love sweet. And people have used plants throughout history. There are many traditions that we utilize. In this country, we kind of have traditions from all over the world that have come with the people that have come to this continent, as well as from the people that continue to live on this continent, that were here before many immigrants have come. And so we have kind of a mixture of Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine, African traditional medicine. We have a Native American traditional medicine. We have traditional Chinese medicine. I just mentioned that. There's so many different traditions that we have access to because of the movement of people throughout time. And so one of the things, our roles here as herbalists in this particular in America, which has a long history of colonization, is acknowledging where this knowledge has come from, where this plant medicine practice has come from, acknowledging the use of plants in ethical ways, honoring the plant themselves and also the people that have shared those plants with us. And that has not always happened. So it's a reckoning is happening in the herbal world to try to acknowledge where all of this information comes from. This is an example of an oil extract. And so this is, like I said, you just take the plant material, you put it in a liquid and you soak it. And the traditional way is you soak for a full moon cycle, so 28 days. Sometimes we cheat and we do what's called a percolation, where you just move the plant material through, you grind it up very, very fine, move the plant material through the liquid, typically alcohol, and you cheat by doing that in a few hours, sometimes 24 hours or even less. So there are ways to not have to wait a full moon cycle, but the traditional way, particularly from my tradition, which is kind of, like I said, American, but also a mixture of a lot of Northern European tradition, is a full moon cycle. I mentioned also that the bitter taste stimulates digestive secretions and all of those other things. There's also what's considered in herbal medicine a pungent or a spicy taste, and that is represented by a lot of our culinary plants. So lavender is, I know that many people think of it for its aromatic qualities. Well, those aromatic qualities also share some pungency when you take them in. Aromatic plants are vasodilators, generally speaking. They tend to relax the blood vessels, relax the periphery of the body so that blood moves through the system. And so we like to use these plants to help both relax the system, but also help open up the system to receive other medicine. So for example, if I'm concerned about someone's cardiovascular health, I may want to give them an herb that's going to help build the structure and function of those vessels. But I may use an aromatic herb that will help get the medicine there by opening up the vessels and bringing that other plant with it. So that's where formulation comes in. That's what we like to combine herbs. Cannabis is a wonderful plant. It's aromatic, it's pungent, and it really has the bitter qualities. It has these pungencies. So it has some of those qualities all in one, which I think is one of the reasons why it is so effective at what it does. But it's also wonderful combined with lots of other plants. And we, in addition to the things that I mentioned a minute ago with regard to extracting, we also distill. So we take aromatic plants and we distill them, which means that we basically put all the flowering tops, as you see here with the lavender, into a large colander inside of a steel kettle, and we run steam through the plant material. It breaks the cell walls and picks up those volatile compounds. So aromatic compounds are volatile. They're easily released from the plant material when exposed to heat, which is one of the reasons why you don't want to leave your herbs sitting out in the sun or sitting in a hot place. You want to maintain the quality by keeping the temperature low, away from light. Well, we kind of put the temperature to the plants and we extract those aromatic molecules through distillation. And the yield at that end point is a combination of aromatic water and essential oil. So a lot of people are familiar with essential oils who may not be familiar with any other form of herbal medicine. Essential oils are the most concentrated form of herbal medicine that there is. They're very, very resource intensive. I think they're amazing, antimicrobial, all of those things, but you don't necessarily need an essential oil to get the intended effect. So that's where I think having a little bit of knowledge can help. These are some sour herbs. So I wanted to just try to go through some of the flavors with you. So sour on the left, this is hibiscus. And on the right is elderberry. So both of these plants are, they help astringe tissue, which means sour flavor tends to be astringent. So it's astringent tissue, which means it helps provide support and healing to the structure of tissue, which then enhances function. So I think of these plants in particular because they're very deeply colored, they're highly antioxidant, they tend to help with vascular health. So I love both of these plants for supporting the function of the vessels, which also then helps the function of the immune system, which also helps the function of the cardiovascular system in general, bringing oxygenation to tissue. So I know I'm trying to get through this pretty quickly because I have 20 minutes only. So I want to try to keep on time, and I'll cover a lot really quickly. And then we'll go through a more in-depth talk in the future where I'll talk more specifically about all these topics. So traditional medical systems in general that, again, we kind of borrow from, all share, no matter where in the world they're from, share some commonalities. And that is that the goal of traditional medical systems tend to want to bring humans toward a more balanced state. And that balanced state is recognizing that we are not just physical bodies, that we're also mental and spiritual bodies, and that it's all connected. And so that's where I feel as though we, in our society, we are not just sick physically, we are really sick spiritually. And I think that plants can help bridge that connection that we're missing. And plants that are not just plants that are psychoactive. So we're going to hear about cannabis with THC next. Plants that are psychoactive connect us to our spiritual selves in ways that perhaps other plants may not be able to. And that's where throughout history, we have always used plants for ritual. And I think that we're doing more and more research on psilocybin mushrooms, for example, and THC and cannabis, and these other chemicals that are occurring in nature that we have not necessarily taken as themselves. We've taken them as plant medicine, but that's another way in which I think the mental and spiritual sides of ourselves can really, I think, be addressed in ways that our modern system has not been able to. We have protocols for nutrition and health promotion, as well as acute and chronic disease throughout all these different traditional systems. So there's kind of different layers of both uses of plants and also of the activities of what an herbalist or what the medicine person is focused on. And it's usually all levels. It's not just giving you one treatment for one disease. It's working with the whole person to get to the root cause of things. And one of the philosophies that's across all the traditional systems that are written is that the treatment should not be worse than the disease. And this is where a lot of practitioners throughout time have gotten lost on the side of moving against modern medical protocols because they felt as though some of them were not honoring that tradition. This is just a picture of some medicines that you may find throughout the world. Upper left is Seoul, Korea. Upper right is it's in West Africa, and the lower right is India, and lower left is Mexico City. So just people all around the world in medicine markets. This is what it looks like. It's the same. People use plants the same. You have plants that are related in all parts of the world throughout history people would use those plants in the same ways throughout history. Salt, and I'm going to cut it pretty soon. These are salty plants. So salt tends to manage our waters of the body. So if you think of highly mineral rich herbs and plants, our kidneys work by kind of deciding what to keep and what to release. And when you take in a lot of minerals, it's going to help the kidneys decide to hold on to maybe a little bit less water and hold on to a little bit more minerals, or vice versa. And so when you're feeding your body adequately, you're not going to artificially hold on to more water in the hopes that you may have more nutrition coming with that water. So I'm not doing a good job explaining this, but basically when you think of the salty taste, think of minerals, think of fluids, think of lymph. And two herbs that I think really represent that to me are nettle, which is on the left, which you may be familiar with the term stinging nettle if you were a kid running through the woods and you got scratches on you that left a rash. Nettles have these little stickers on the sides of them that kind of pierce you as you walk by. A very mineral rich, dense plant. And then on the right is chickweed, which is what many consider a weed. It's coming up now around here, just barely popping up in some of the sunnier places, but it likes wet and it's very, very watery and salty. A lot of people want to know where they can get plants, how they can learn about plants. And I know that wildcrafting is a lot of people's first exposure to plants. They may have learned how to identify dandelions and they go out and they harvest dandelion leaves, another bitter plant, another mineral rich plant. I suggest that you follow somebody who does plant walks, get confirmation of ID of any plant that you wanted to learn about or harvest. I always encourage people to get a friend who knows about plants to show them or teach them rather than just trying to learn on their own plant ID from a book. I've seen a lot of people harvest the wrong plant and really almost hurt themselves. In some cases, people have hurt themselves with harvesting plants that are not good. I mean, not all plants are totally safe. We have some of the most toxic plants in our region. So we need to know, there's very few, there's only a few, but you need to know them and you need to know how to not harvest those. Purchasing plants, there's a lot of regional farmers around the area that are growing plants. We grow herbs, many different herbs. Lancaster Pharmacy is a farm in Lancaster area. They grow a lot of herbs. Tooth of the Lion, another altogether now associated farm. She grows a lot of herbs. And there are increasing numbers of herb farms around the region. Tonight, I'm going to be taking part in a regional farm meetup for farmers in West Virginia, herb farmers in West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia. So, and DC, there's like a group in DC too. So there's a growing interest in plant medicine, I think, around the region. And there's also a growing connection and network of people that are growing plants and getting them to people that need the plants. There's a new thing starting in Philly called the Herb Hub, and it's a group of activists that are connecting people in the community who are most in need of plant medicine through donation. And so all of us that I've been working with them for a while now, but all of us they're collecting farmers who are willing to donate a certain part of their harvest. So we'll be giving a part of our harvest to this group. So there's like ways we're trying to get the plants to people that need them as well. Cultivating, there's lots of really great books on growing herbs. Many of them are very, very easy to grow, and a lot of them grow right under your feet already. So I encourage you to get to know the plants around you that are growing in your backyard, that are growing in not necessarily in the cracks of the sidewalk, but that otherwise would grow in the cracks of the sidewalk. And yeah, this is passion flower. This is one of my favorites, nervous system supporting plants. And I'm going to check out the chat. Yeah.
Thanks, Linda. I think that you need to stop sharing your screen.
Sorry. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And are we all good now? No.
I don't know how much time I have left. I don't know if I have time for questions or not.
We have a little bit of time, maybe just one question and then we can go. Okay. There were some people that were talking down there, but I just had one question, and it was, what's your favorite plant medicine?
Dandelion.
Me too. Okay, cool. I had kidney stones, and the guy I bought my farm from came to my farm and told me, don't worry about it. Just eat 3 of these dandelion roots every day. And I went back. I was planned to have surgery. And I went back and my kidney stones were gone. So gone, nowhere to be found. Okay. So I think that just in order to stay on schedule, we're going to need to save some questions for the end and move over to Scott. I think that you might be spotlighted, Linda. Is that what's happening?
How do I undo that?
Maybe make me a host because
Oh.
Yeah, go to my name and then make me the host because I had to switch over so that you could do that.
Let's see. So do I go to participants?
Yep. And then just click on my name all together now. Make me the host.
Okay, sorry. Yes.
Good?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'm the host. I'm back. Am I spotlighted? Can everybody see me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So Scott Goddard, he is coming to us from Philadelphia. Where are you, Scott?
Yeah, we're right north of Philadelphia.
All right, awesome. Scott is, hold on one second here. I gotta fix this. Everybody. So Scott Goddard is the manager of staff development at Terra Vida Holistic Centers. He's an expert on cannabis and an essential part of the team's employee development and education division. We are happy to have Scott be on our event today to talk about THC and cannabis. It's what's on everybody's mind when it's becoming legal. It's going to be in your town soon if it already isn't. Yeah, again, just to keep on schedule, Scott, I'm going to send it over to you and you can get going and start your presentation. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Eric. It's been a pleasure. Thanks to all the other presenters as well. And thanks for the intro. So hello, everybody. As he said, my name is Scott Goddard from Terra Vida Holistic Centers, and we are a medical marijuana dispensary group in Pennsylvania. Currently, we have 3 active locations, Sellersville, Malvern, and Abington. But we got awarded another license this year, which is one of the toughest things to do. So we have 3 more locations opening up sort of in the Philadelphia area, but we actually have some things going out to the west to look forward to. So hopefully pretty soon we'll be in your neighborhood and neck of the woods in PA. Now, as Eric mentioned, I work here as the manager of staff development. So mainly, that's kind of a fancy way to say that I train all the new employees in cannabis science and cannabis medicine. So we're just maybe a mile or two north of Philadelphia in Jenkintown, Pennsylvania. And we're actually broadcasting, as you see sort of behind me, some mock products and everything. We're in a place called the Terra Vida Education Center. And this is sort of a purpose-built room where we train all of our new employees, but it's really for cannabis education for everyone. So although we do our new employee training here, it also functions as a communal hub to provide educational forums to the public through a variety of sort of events and things like that. We also shoot a series called the Daily Dose Videos, and that's an educational series on YouTube about cannabis medicine, and it's on our Terra Vida Education channel in case anybody likes these sort of things, because it's pretty similar to what we do here, just trying to especially create good education for plant medicine and more. With all that being said, though, of course, I'm here to talk about THC and how it can contribute uniquely in the pursuit of health. So in my mind, the first thought is, sort of what is health? And a lot of the previous speakers mentioned a lot of the ways in which it's interpreted. The modern sort of health concept, I kind of feel is more of an additive approach. It's very capitalistic in that way. A more is more type of thinking. So they tell you or encourage you to think, more vitamins, increasing healthy actions is what increases health, like a credit score. But just because you have more superfoods or more ancient grains or 10,000 more steps, your BMI is sort of here, your blood pressure's got to be down here, bam, we're supposed to be healthy. And although that describes elements of health, I don't think that's really what health is. Even at the top, Judy mentioned some of the happiest people she found in some of the toughest living conditions because of that sense of community. So we know that this sort of additive type of health is especially found in pharmaceutical avenues of treatment. A lot of times you have an issue and we have a pill for that. You have another issue, well, we have an even bigger pill for that one, and maybe a pill to balance out the other pill to make the first pill work better. Internally, I feel that often forces our biology into a corner. So then we only really seek treatment or get treatment when something is obviously wrong with us. Prescription drugs often aim for one specific outcome, but as was mentioned even earlier, there's so many unwanted possible side effects. They can often outweigh the benefit of the original medicine. So I prefer to think of health a little differently than that, because health isn't just avoiding problems, and health is not just the absence of malady. In my mind, health includes a heavy promotion of balance, harmony, and growth. Some call it fulfillment, of course. It also is known as an overall feeling of wellness. But I think it includes that mixture of those classic factors, psychological health, social health with your community and relationships, and of course, mainly what we're here to talk about today, which is some aspects of biological health and where plant medicine comes in. Now, thinking about our bodies, the needs and functions of our bodies are constantly in flux, as was even mentioned in the last presentation. So, minute to minute throughout the day, what we need changes through our sleep and waking cycles and beyond. So since our body's needs are constantly changing, it might be water or nutrition or physical activity, or obviously in this sake, medicine that needs to vary as well. So in the pursuit of health, I feel that variety is truly a strength. And this is where plant medicines that were mentioned and things like THC can really become particularly useful. THC, as Kara and Ben mentioned earlier, is the psychoactive component in cannabis, in medical marijuana products in Pennsylvania. So it is that main actor that sort of messes with your perception and changes it in the most noticeable ways. Now, sort of the classic ones that everybody thinks of when they think about cannabis is an increased feeling of relaxation, increased appetite, increased euphoria. I think the comedian Cat Williams once called it the happy, hungry, and sleepy sort of condition. And that's probably the most famous ones. But beyond those classic things, THC has a massive healing potential. Cannabis oils like THC and certainly like CBD often synergize together and create benefits beyond just the single element. And they do that by interacting with a system of the body called the endocannabinoid system. This wasn't discovered until I think the early 90s, between 91 and 95. So it's, as far as science goes, extremely young in its study. Now this system, the endocannabinoid system, is the largest system responsible for how our bodies regulate their internal balance of biological functions. So in a lot of areas, if you're more medically inclined, it's known as homeostasis. It's the tendency of our bodies to seek a stable equilibrium when faced with external or internal changes. And that can be injury, that can be temperature, you sweat when it's hot, you feel tired when your energy is starting to wane, all ways that our body kind of keeps that seesaw just ever so level. Now, through that system, the endocannabinoid system, THC and other entities like terpenes and other cannabinoids from the marijuana plant can create prominent effects in areas, classic ones, hunger, sleep, mood, and even pain. But beyond that, they directly interact with nerve cells, muscle cells, skin cells, neurotransmitters, and even specialized parts of the immune system. And through that, THC also has additional anti-inflammation, antitoxin, anti-pain, antibacterial properties. So just a big list of possible treatment options. So much so that in PA, we currently have 23 qualifying conditions that would all allow you to gain access to the medical marijuana program. It ranges from things like just anxiety, opioid use disorder, which was mentioned, all the way to the other side, like genetic issues like MS, arthritis, chronic pain, Crohn's disease, and even the big C, like cancer. So with this kind of list of potentials, we can see that what THC can do for the body is vast. In some cases, we've even seen THC can interact with traditional pharmaceutical drug avenues and treatments where it can sometimes increase the effectiveness of the treatment you're on, which can help reduce potentially the dosage that you're on currently, or it can sometimes help manage some of the side effects. So the unwanted things, for me, as a guy who's been on painkillers before due to injury, oftentimes those sorts of things will mess with your ability to tell if you're hungry. It's sort of a wasting situation. And although most people don't want the munchies, it's one of those rare instances where if you can't tell you're hungry, it's great to have something to be able to encourage you to eat further and continue a healthy balance. Now, what that really means is that there's a lot of variety in marijuana. So not only is it a strength in the pursuit of health, but also in the way medical marijuana works. There's thousands of different strains, ways to formulate extractions, and product varieties. So this all means that you can find a specific tool, a unique sort of balancing factor that can fit your particular lifestyle and your particular body's needs. So with all these sort of options, it's like a smorgasbord. We really want to be able to have people understand that their preferences and their schedule can really be respected. So at least majorly, and I know some of it was mentioned by our great CBD farmers on here, we have a couple different things in our dispensaries, which also give you the option of how you want to take it in. If you like it by the lungs, there are classic buds like we saw earlier. We also have, what do we have here? Vape carts, of course, classic and modern way to be able to vaporize oils and cannabinoids. We also have, for those of you who are a little more modern for it, concentrates that come in these little jars. Close up, you can see that little orange in there, which is a extracted cannabis oil. So we have many different forms you can use for inhaling. Say you don't want the lungs, we have things like tinctures, capsules, and tablets, which can give you an easier measured dose, which is just an oil base. And certainly we know that there's folks out there who have so many pills on them, have dealt with so much pharma that they don't really want another tablet or another capsule. So for some folks who like to cook a little bit more, we're always thinking food as well. You want to do a little more work, you can buy just the high potency oil, either the tincture or in a syringe. And that way you can just add it to food and create your own infused edible with something that is your favorite food instead of having to buy the brownie or having to buy the cookie. Although still, we're looking forward to when those things become more saleable. And for folks who are on restricted diets, keto, gluten-free issues, or something that's chosen like being a vegan or vegetarian, now you can choose the food instead of being forced to have to figure out ingredients lists and whether or not they're kosher. So let's say you don't want to do by stomach. Well, you can use it through the skin. We saw a lotion through the earlier presenter with CBD in it, which is actually something I use, especially through the winter. Dry skin is just brutal with the way this last winter was. So we have lotions and salves, and there's also things like transdermal patches. And this really brings into focus a type of relief that THC is not known for as much. We're all usually thinking when you include THC, you're going to run into that classic headspace, the sort of change in focus and the change in thinking. But especially in topicals, we find that there's a lot of products with THC in them. They can help with skin issues. They kind of work where you put them, light external pain relief. But they don't actually get you inebriated. They don't cross deep enough into your skin to be picked up by your bloodstream. So we have I'd say 80–90% of the topical products in our market are unable to actually get into your headspace. They won't inebriate, they won't get you into that classic high that a lot of folks might feel is not what they want. You know, there's a lot of stigma to it. And this can be great for folks with that hesitation. Lastly, to mention, at least for the medicine, there's even a version of THC that not a lot of people talk about called THCA. It's found more in the raw flower, and it has very similar overlapping benefits as THC does. But the one real special thing about it is that it is not psychoactive. So in this way, it can still promote all of these great benefits like reduce spasms, reduce seizures, reduce nausea, and improved immunofunctionality. But it can do all of this without the inebriating effects. So in other words, you can heal without the high in certain products. And this, especially when we think about it, works well for, you know, very professional adults and situations where children might require treatment through cannabis, but we of course don't want to tempt potentially affecting their development. So that means there are options available in almost every possible way so that you can tune your balance of health with respect to this unique kind of product. And lastly, only to mention for those who might be interested, a quick 4 basic steps of if you're in PA and thinking about your card, what can you do to get it? Well, thankfully, it's pretty straightforward. Step 1, you register with the DOH at medicalmarijuana.pa.gov and you get a unique ID. You find a doctor from the list on their website who's going to be able to certify you for the program, and you'll find all these qualifying conditions to look at to see if you can get in. And if you're ever worried, you know, we work with certain doctors with Terra Vida to make sure they don't price gouge or charge you too much. After that, you make your appointment and you settle up with the doctor and the state. It's $50 a year for the card plus the cost of the appointment. And then step 4, you wait for the card, and once it arrives on the active date, you can call us up if you're close by or just walk into most dispensaries and be able to finally gain access legally. So what is this impressive medicine? As I said, you can find more info on medicalmarijuana.pa.gov concerning the process, or hit us up on our website, terravidahc.com, to find out more. But that's all I got for you today. Thanks a lot for your attention, everybody.
Thanks a lot, Scott. Appreciate it. That was really awesome. And yeah, I have a lot of questions as always. Yeah, the THC market is really exciting. Probably the most famous plant medicine. So I'm sure, you know, everybody listening, we can spend a whole bunch of time on this, and we're going to. You know, we're wrapping things up here. We're gonna head over to Sharon Perry-Thomas. Sharon is the owner of Plant and People in Philadelphia. She represents DACO, the Black and Black Cannabis Week. DACO is the Diasporic Alliance for Cannabis Opportunities. We've worked with Sharon Perry-Thomas on Black Cannabis Week. We did Hempcrete Week last year, which was really awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to really quick just let everybody know that's listening that these are all of our hosts here and all of the speakers here are incredible wealths of knowledge regarding plant medicine. So feel free to reach out and look for more information on the All Together Now website for more in-depth dives into each person's plant medicine focuses. We're going to have Linda back and Ben Davies and Scott to spend, you know, a whole bunch of time really getting to understand, you know, each aspect of the plant medicine industry. So thank you. And Sharon, you're ready to go. Are you there? Okay.
Yes, I am here. Yeah, you can hear me okay, right, Eric?
I hear you.
Perfect. So I want to thank you and Judy and really start diving more into this plant medicine. I mean, we've had some great information and presentations. I mean, Scott, you know, brought us home with the cannabis education. Ben and Kara talked about their experiences in hemp, and Linda, you know, went from the medicinal all the way to the spiritual with plant medicine. And so this has really been a great form. And I just want to sort of just bring it to a close by speaking more about plant medicine and making some of those connections. And so, you know, we've heard all these different terminologies, the cannabis, the herbs. At the end of the day, it's all plant medicine. And, you know, plants as a source of medicine have been used since the beginning of time. And we have learned from many of the ancient scripts and writings that plants was that source for healing. And in this modern world, Plants are known more now for their medicinal uses, particularly as a vital pharmaceutical drug for the treatment of many illnesses. And as a student at the University of the Sciences, it's so interesting seeing how many of the pharmaceuticals derive from plants that we have all around us today. And so we need to make more of those connections. And I know for me, my connection starts with my ancestors. I descend from the essence of an enslaved African woman who gave birth to the first free child on this land in our family. And Cecilia lived to be over 100 years. And she was what they called a root doctor or a traditional healer who also delivered babies, including my grandmother, and her blood runs deep in my soul, deep in my veins. And so from earlier on, I have always been interested in plants, even plants for healing. Even having a mom who was a nurse, we always used herbs. It was drink this tea here, put this poultice on. And so understanding how important that is for me is something that I continually want to pass on to other people. I've been in the natural products industry for the last 18 years, introducing over 2,000 products into the natural market for consumers to find. And many of these plants that we've introduced have been for healing. And so as we look at where we are today, bringing that connection with the plants closer to the people here through Plant and People. And at Plant and People, we, service people through plants. So plants that you eat, plants that you grow, plants that you just love to be connected with. And so making those connections and for us being able to help people make those connections is really, really important for us. We're in West Philly. We're in a very underserved, marginalized community where plants are not one of those things that is top of the list. And so we have found during this very traumatic year of 2020, dealing with COVID, dealing with the murder of George Floyd and many others, that helping people to sort of deal with their trauma by introducing them to plant care. And we like to say plant care is a way to self-care. And so I just want to, just really leave by saying, no matter what you do, no matter what medicine you use currently in your life, please consider to explore more alternative options with plants. If that's eating more plants in your diet, on your plate, if that is having more plants in your environment, having more plants in everything that you do, I think making those connections, walking in the woods, walking, in natural environments, helping you to make those connections will not only make you feel better, it makes our communities better, and it especially help us to connect with our environment and make our environment better. So that is my plug on plants and connecting to plants and hopefully healing through plant medicine. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Sharon. We are going to open it up for some questions. There was some questions on there, which maybe Scott can take a look at. Someone was asking about your website again, I believe. If anybody has any questions, for the end of the event, please, you can ask now. I have a couple of questions actually that we weren't able to get to from Linda. Linda, where in Pennsylvania would you be comfortable sending people to find medicine, to herbal remedies, or, is this something that they should look at? Should they look in a book? I use Back to Eden. I know there's other books out there, but if I have a certain ailment, if there's something that I'm feeling is wrong, should I research my potential, my ailment, and then go to a store, or what's the best way to kind of get people started instead of just picking up the phone and calling their doctor? Not that you shouldn't do that, but
And I do think there are some really good books. Sometimes the books are a little bit overwhelming for people, I find, because there's just so many herbs listed. People aren't really sure where to, what's safe, what's not safe. Even if the books are pretty specific, sometimes people feel a little bit overwhelmed by the information, but there are some. There's one that I really like that I give to all of my students, written by a naturopath in Oregon, called, what's it called? She has a book called Herbal ABCs, which sounds really cheesy, but it's a pretty good book that goes system by system. But there are some really great practitioners in every community, either whether they're acupuncturists. Acupuncturists in Pennsylvania don't have to use herbs. It's not required by their licensure, but in some states it is required by licensure. And so many acupuncturists have studied traditional herbal medicine as part of their training. There are herbalists in many communities, either practicing with like a shingle or maybe informally, and their knowledge base could be utilized if you can find them. And one of the ways you can find them is through the American Herbalist Guild. There's a website, it's www.ahg.org for the American Herbalist Guild, and they have a listing state by state of practitioners who specialize in herbal medicine. They've been vetted to some extent by the Guild in order to list their shingle up there. There's really no licensure for herbalism in this country, aside from people who practice acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine. But there are Ayurvedic practitioners. There's people in every community practicing in their traditions, but they may not have, like I said, shingles up. So sometimes it's word of mouth. But if you can't find that way, I would say go to the American Herbalist Guild to see an herbalist, or if you'd like to do more research. If you have a specific condition, there's a website that I recommend people go through, and this is a conventional site, but it's through the Sloan Kettering Memorial Center, called About Herbs. And many people, more than 60% of the population over the age of 60 is on 2 pharmaceutical medications. I recommend that you always look to make sure something that you want to do, take part in plant-wise, does not interact with your medication. So they have a really great herb drug interaction list, as well as research, evidence-based research for all the different herbs that you may encounter. Some that I use are not on there, but most of the most common ones are. It's About Herbs. And if you just do a search for About Herbs, it actually comes up to Sloan Memorial Kettering site, and you can actually put an app on your phone. It's a great resource to have on hand if you're in the store and not really sure, is this the herb for me? You can look on there.
Great. Thank you very, very much. There was a question that we had for you, Ben, about the hemp tea. I think that somebody wanted to know if it was medicinal.
Sure. Can you hear us all right?
Yep.
Yep. I was just gonna add to what Linda was saying about the as far as your question, as far as locations too, to even find it, maybe, which is the way I heard your question as well. But there's natural food stores and places like that. You have your Whole Foods, your Kimpton Whole Foods, Weaver's Way, all these like local small town natural food stores. One of the things too that we always encourage folks to do is to say, hey, where do you have any local medicinal products? Are you buying Barefoot are you buying and retailing Barefoot Botanicals tinctures and hydrosols and things like that? Like these are different products that we can produce as small businesses, just in the same quality as a large national distributor. And so the reminder is always to encourage those businesses to source locally as well, because that's kind of what All Together is all about right now. Go ahead.
As for the tea, yes, it is medicinal. We use organic herbs in addition to our organic hemp. So we've got our lemongrass, our chamomile, and then just our original. And Linda could do a much better job at explaining what those offer medicinally, but they each definitely have medicinal value, including the CBD value that you'd be getting from those.
Yeah, and there's we didn't really go into, Linda hit a little bit on it with when she was talking about hops and like some of the other extracts, like the essential oils that you're familiar with. There's like I said before, the terpenes, that flavor and aroma that you get from the cannabis plant are also have a lot of medicinal value as well. The terpenes are basically kind of like your essential oils as well. So those are in the tea as well as a lot of our other products.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
So I just want to say something right quick, Eric. I don't want people to be confused. So there is a difference between Whole Foods and Kimberton Whole Foods. So if you don't expect to go into a Whole Foods and think that you're going to get this information. So I just want folks to be clear that it is Kimberton Whole Foods and they're very knowledgeable.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And also, as being signed up to Altogether Now, becoming a member of the Plant Medicine Coalition, becoming a member of any of our industrial hemp coalitions, we're really looking for people from Pennsylvania to start getting involved. We're going to try and bring as much great information, resources about all of the different pieces of this sustainability path, our path forward. So this is a first little intro that we're going to do. Everybody should stay tuned. There will be more. And on the Altogether Now website as well, we're going to be putting a members login. We're getting membership ready, as well as business memberships. So there'll be directories available for everybody to hop on and find these wonderful places like Terra Vida and Wild Fox and Barefoot Botanicals. So thanks for everybody for being here. It was really wonderful. I'm going to just turn it over to Judy so she could say goodbye. And I really, really appreciate everyone being here. This was a really wonderful first attempt to start chatting about what we believe is going to be a really a great way to keep ourselves healthy moving forward. So here you go, Judy.
Well, thank you, Eric, for moderating, and thanks to our speakers. I really learned so much. It was great. I'm going to be buying some more plant medicine. And don't forget the links to our speakers' websites and other plant medicine area companies like Tooth of the Lion and Lancaster Pharmacy that Linda mentioned are on our website, altogethernow.pa.org, and then go to the plant medicine section and you can find them. So thank you all so much for being here. This is our first program that we've done, and we'll be doing many more. And Linda's going to be doing some deep dives into the plant medicine. She's got so much knowledge as do our other speakers. So we want to spend more time going into various plants and so on. And we'll be doing informational programs on other aspects of our work, local grains, clothing and textiles, industrial hemp, hempcrete as a building material, and so on. So thank you all. Have a great evening.
Thanks, everybody.